March 1922, rural Bavaria, Germany, a small, isolated farmstead called Hinterkaifeck. For weeks before anyone dies, something is wrong. The farmer, Andreas Gruber, starts telling his neighbors things that make them uncomfortable. He says he's been hearing footsteps in the attic at night. He found a newspaper on the property that nobody in his household had ordered, a newspaper from Munich that had no business being there. He found that the house key, missing for months, never turned up. He found the door to the attic open from the inside. And then he found the thing that should have ended this story before it started. Footprints in the snow, leading from the direction of the forest across the open ground directly to the farmhouse, not away from it, not back and forth, just coming in. Someone walked out of the woods and walked into his home, and did not walk back out. Andreas Gruber told people about this. He told his neighbors. He told someone at church. He did not call the police. On the night of March 31st, 1922, or sometime in the early hours of April 1st, 6 people were murdered at Hinterkaifeck farm. Andreas Gruber, his wife Cecilia, their daughter Victoria, Victoria's 2 children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph, and the farm's new maid, Maria Baumgartner, who had only arrived at the property the day before. But the murder isn't the most disturbing part of this case. After the murders, someone stayed in that house for days. Don't you dare close this video. This case gets darker with every single detail. Hinterkaifeck was not a village. It was a single farm, isolated, set back from any road, a long walk from the nearest neighbors. The Gruber family had farmed there for years. By 1922, the household was Andreas, his wife Cecilia, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, Victoria's 2 young children, and whatever help they employed. The previous maid had quit. She refused to come back to the farm. She told people the place was haunted, that she heard sounds she couldn't explain, that she was afraid of something she couldn't name. Nobody took her seriously. She was gone. Maria Baumgartner was her replacement. She arrived on March 31st, 1922, the day of the murders. She had worked there for less than 24 hours when she was killed. What Andreas Gruber reported. In the weeks before the murders, Gruber told at least 2 of his neighbors about the things happening at the farm. The footprints in the snow coming from the forest were the most alarming because they came in and didn't go back out. He had checked the attic and found clear signs someone had been living up there. Food had gone missing from the kitchen. He'd heard movements above the living space at night. The Munich newspaper, no one could explain where it came from. And the key to the house lock had vanished months earlier, but none of the doors had been forced. He was describing a person who had been secretly living in or accessing his home, possibly for months. He didn't call the police. By some accounts, he wasn't sure anyone would believe him. By others, he was stubborn, a man who didn't run from problems. Whatever the reason, he did nothing official. The night of the murders. The exact sequence of events on the night of March 31st has never been established. What investigators pieced together from the evidence is this: the family members were not all killed at once. The adults and the older children appear to have been drawn to the barn or found in it, and killed there with a mattock, a heavy farming tool used to break earth. A mattock that may well have come from the farm itself. The 2-year-old Joseph was killed in his crib inside the house. Maria Baumgartner was killed in her room. The nature of the wounds and the positions of the bodies suggested that at least some of the victims were brought to the barn one by one, possibly lured there under some pretense, which means the killer may have been moving between victims while others were still alive and unaware. That detail has never stopped being horrifying to investigators who have looked at this case. After the murders, the days that should not have happened. Here is the part that defines the Hinterkaifeck case. After 6 people were murdered in that farmhouse and barn, someone stayed. For days, neighbors noticed that the farm seemed quiet but not abandoned. Smoke rose from the chimney. The fire was being stoked. The animals in the barn were being fed and cared for. A neighbor sent a young person to deliver something to the farm. No one came to the door, but the farm showed signs of life. A postal worker came, left mail, noted nothing obviously wrong. Stop right here for 1 second. If this case is already getting under your skin, you need to be subscribed before I get to the part about what was found in the attic evidence. Because what Bavarian investigators documented up there in 1922 is the detail that explains why this person was never caught. Hit subscribe. It takes 2 seconds, then keep watching. One neighbor became concerned after a few days of not seeing anyone from the household in person. She went closer. She saw the chimney still going. On April 4th, 4 or 5 days after the murders, a group of neighbors and the local mechanic went to the farm together to investigate. They found the bodies in the barn. Kazilia the elder and Victoria were found there with Andreas. Joseph was in his crib. Maria Baumgartner was in her room. But the kitchen showed signs of recent use. Food had been eaten. The fire had been recently maintained. The animals were in significantly better condition than they would have been after 5 days without care. Someone had murdered 6 people and then lived among them, cooking, sleeping, tending the animals for somewhere between 3 and 5 days, and then walked away. The investigation. Bavarian police descended on Hinterkaifeck and conducted what was, for 1922, a serious investigation. They interviewed over 100 people in the surrounding area. They took forensic samples. They examined the physical evidence carefully. Suspicion fell on multiple people over the years. One name that kept coming up was Lawrence Schlittenbauer, a neighbor, a man who had a complicated personal history with Victoria Gruber and who was widely believed in the village to be the biological father of little Joseph. Schlittenbauer had motive, a paternity dispute, money that may have been owed. He had knowledge of the farm. And he had been one of the first people to go to the farm on April 4th, guiding the others directly to the barn rather than trying the house first, as if he already knew where to look. He was investigated. He was never charged. Other suspects were considered over the decades. None was ever brought to trial. What the war destroyed. During World War II, Allied bombing destroyed significant portions of Munich, including the building where the Munich police kept physical evidence from the Hinterkaifeck case. Documents, photographs, and forensic materials were lost. But there is a detail even stranger than the destroyed records. During the original investigation, the skulls of the victims were removed and sent to a clairvoyant, a psychic, that Munich police had reportedly used before, in the hopes that some information could be gained from them. This was 1922. It was a different era of investigation. The skulls were then placed in a forensic collection in Munich for further study. They were misplaced. For decades, the Gruber family's remains were buried without their skulls. The skulls sat in a storage collection in Munich, mislabeled or incorrectly cataloged, for over 70 years. In 1999, the skulls were located in a collection that had been largely forgotten. They were identified and finally returned to the Hinterkaifeck graves to be buried with the rest of the family. It had taken 77 years to reunite the bodies. The farm. Hinterkaifeck Farm was demolished in 1923. The site was plowed under. Today it is a field. There is a small memorial marker. You can stand where the farmhouse stood in the middle of rural Bavaria with the forest behind you, the same forest those footprints came from, and there is nothing there. Nobody has ever been charged with the murders of Andreas Gruber, Kazilia Gruber, Victoria Gabriel, Kazilia Gabriel, Joseph Gabriel, and Maria Baumgartner. The case has been reviewed by criminology students and forensic investigators in Germany as recently as 2007, when a class at Augsburg Technical University undertook a comprehensive reanalysis using modern methodology. Their conclusion: the killer almost certainly knew the farm well, was likely known to the family and had planned the murders deliberately, including the choice to stay afterward. They could not identify who it was. 102 years later, the Hinterkaifeck murders remain unsolved. He knew someone was in his house. He checked. He found evidence. He told his neighbors. He did nothing. 6 people dead. A killer who cooked meals and fed animals while the bodies lay in the barn. A case where the physical evidence was bombed. The skulls were lost for 77 years, and not a single person has ever been charged. Over 100 years, not one name, not one answer. Hit like right now if this one got to you. It helps more than you think. Share it with someone who thinks they've heard the darkest true crime cases. And subscribe to WhisprFrame, because the next video on this channel is about a 21-year-old woman who checked into a hotel in Los Angeles. 11 days later, she was reported missing. 3 weeks after that, guests started complaining the water tasted wrong. Maintenance went to the roof and found her inside a sealed water tank. She had been in there for 19 days, and the hotel's elevator security footage captured something nobody has ever been able to fully explain. That video is already up, and it is one of the most watched unsolved cases in internet history.